Wreck My Podcast.
A movie documentary hybrid that will leave you chilled and terrified. The only abduction happening this episode is our listeners' ears and hearts this week on Wreck My Reality.
Wreck My Podcast.
Welcome in, guys, to Wreck My Podcast. This week we're talking about the movie The Fourth Kind. I feel like this might be a movie some of you may have heard of, may not have heard of. It feels like it flew a little bit under the radar, but also had notoriety. I don't know how it does that. But also, I'm here with my guest who loves me, but is also way better than me, my wife, Madison.
It's me. Hello.
Hey. So we decided to watch this movie, The Fourth Kind.
Yeah, I was one of the people you were talking about who had never heard of it.
Yeah, so I had seen this movie like soon after it come out. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, we'll talk about this movie like when I had seen it. So before we do explaining the movie real quick here and give you the plot breakdown, we want to give a disclaimer. This movie is best seen with no preconceived anything.
Okay, I was just going to say, I know it's like the ultimate no-no to be like, stop listening and go do something else. But I feel like you have to watch it before you listen to this.
This movie really loses all of its...
Otherwise, we're going to ruin it for you.
Well, this movie loses all of its luster when you figure out the gimmick.
Yeah.
So, like, watch the movie, and it's just going in blind, not knowing anything, and just kind of like sit down for an hour and a half, watch this movie, have a good time, and then there you go. Come back
we've
and
been
listen
on a little bit of a kick. Like, we watched all the Conjurings, then we watched like Insidious and like a bunch of those ones. So I feel like we were kind of a little bit on the kick. Then we did a complete 180 and watched Tommy Boy.
Well, yeah, we did.
And then we were like, okay, we need to get back into the scary stuff. And you were like, I think I saw this a long time ago. Let's watch it. And then
I didn't remember much about
it changed the whole trajectory of our weekend.
Yeah, it did. It did. It was very interesting. I'm quite excited about this movie.
Yeah.
But let's get into the plot real quick here, and I'll explain the movie.
Oh yes, it's time for Jordan to explain the movie quickly.
It's a movie reenacting the strange occurrences to the residents of Nome, Alaska, with archival footage interspersed between the scenes. It recounts the story of Dr. Abigail Tyler, who was a psychologist in Nome when suddenly her husband was murdered. After this, many people started reporting seeing owls in their sleep. Dr. Tyler used hypnosis to have them face these nightmares, but to deadly consequence. While Dr. Tyler is on a journey to the truth, the local sheriff realizes that casualties follow her. The twist happens when we find out these are all alien abductions, and Dr. Tyler also gets experimented on. During the course of the movie, there are multiple mysterious deaths, paranoia, alien encounters, a missing child, and chilling archival footage. We end with the revelation that Dr. Tyler is paralyzed and is completely wrecked by trauma. Her credibility has been undermined, and her son wants nothing to do with her. Real uplifting stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get into the backstory a little bit here. This movie came out, I think, around 2009, and I was probably I watched it after, not in theaters, but when it came out on Netflix like disc. And I remember specifically, I was in college, I was still living at home, and my parents and my siblings all went on some trip, and I didn't go with them, probably because I had classes and I couldn't really get away, whatever. So I'm home alone for 2 weeks, and for some reason, I had just started getting into horror films. So I'm like, you know what? The Fourth Kind, I like alien stuff. Like, I got the concept that like, oh, it's probably aliens because like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's like kind of a reference to the whole different interactions with aliens and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, cool. I want to watch like a horror film. I remember watching it. I remember not being scared because obviously I was like home alone for 2 weeks by myself and I was fine. I did not remember them interspersing archival footage with this.
Right.
I told you before we watched it, I'm like, oh, I remember watching this, and I remember on the special features, there's like this one scene they reenact about like a murder-suicide where like the dude goes crazy and kills his kids and his wife and then kills himself. And I remember like they actually had the dash cam footage of that like in the special features, which was like super crazy.
Right.
So we start watching this movie, and the first thing that the Mia Jovovich says when she comes on, she's like, this movie It's all based on true events.
Right.
I am an actress reenacting, but we are going to take archival footage of all the stuff that actually happened and intersperse it between our reenactments so you can actually see that, like, this isn't a lie. This is like us reenacting actual occurrences.
And she says, like, we're going to dramatize things.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to make it, but, you know, she pretty much says, like, we're going to intersperse the archival footage so, you know.
Yeah.
You can see it's real stuff.
So I didn't remember that. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't remember them.
And the director says something too.
Yeah, the director says something about, like, this is terrifying stuff, like, watch at your own risk
right,
and all
of
that.
Course.
Like, you know, you're watching, like, it's kind of like when you watch those documentaries and you see, like, murder scenes and stuff.
Yes,
like, it's not very fun to see because it's not
They're going to
Hollywood.
say it's like for mature audiences only.
Exactly, but this is only a PG-13 movie.
Right.
Which was my first clue to something we'll let you in on in a second, which maybe you figured out at this point.
No.
But, we're watching this movie and I'm like, man, I do not remember them putting this archival footage in. But I'm like, super awesome. So we're like watching it, and me and you are both really getting into it. And we start getting a little, like halfway through, we start getting a little bit uneasy because we're like, this is weird because we're watching like scenes of like people being abducted by, possessed by aliens.
More.
We're watching people like murdering each other, and it's like actual footage. We're watching like this cop and his dash cam, like seeing this like UFO go over, and like we're kind of like, we get to the end and like the main character, she like gets possessed by an alien, and like her daughter gets taken, but like people don't really believe her and they think that she killed her, but like her daughter's never back around. They do the whole thing at the end of the movie where it's like the text where it's like, Sheriff August, alias, was unwilling to like comment on anything about this movie. He currently lives like wherever. Like, oh, they never have found Ashley Tyler and it's been 12 years or whatever. Or like, you know, like, oh, her son still won't talk to her. And like you find out like she like, and during all of this, there's like an interview going on between Chapman University professor and Dr. Abigail Tyler, the real Abigail Tyler, and she's kind of recounting what happened during all this. It's very well done and very unnerving, and by the end, me and you were kind of like, we feel awful for this lady. Like, she went through so much trauma, and like, I know we were watching reenactments, but also we were watching some like real footage she archived during her psychology appointments. We were like seeing this interview where she's talking about it. Like, we felt really bad, and then it sparked a huge conversation about like alien abductions and what we thought, and demon possession and stuff like that, and kind of like, do we think this is a hoax? What do we think? And then we started going down the path where I was like, but wait a second, what about this? And we started poking holes in the story, and we're like, why didn't this happen? Well, what about like, why didn't this happen? And we started being like, are we just being contrarians because we want to like justify this in our minds so we aren't freaked out that this actually happened? Or are we like actually poking holes in the story and we're finding out like, okay, they really embellished quite a bit?
Right.
So what did you think? Like, what do you have any? I kind of talked
No, you did good. I was going to say, I feel like from my point of view, I didn't even know that Fourth Kind was a reference to aliens. Yeah. That's how removed from sci-fi I am. But I feel like at the beginning, they do a really good job. Like, they start showing you, you know, the archival footage versus Mia Jovovich. Is that her name? Mm-hmm. And at first, the archival footage is not of anything dramatic. It's like her talking to another psychiatrist or something. And you're like, okay, nothing really is going on here. Like, she's going under hypnosis. She's trying to figure out what happened to her husband. Like, clearly that is an extremely traumatic event. She's trying to figure out who murdered her husband. And then it's not until, like, I would say like a half hour in when the first dash cam footage is of the husband killing his family, not her husband, the family, one of her patients.
One of her patients, yeah.
And they actually show the guy killing his wife and his kids.
They blur it out, but you pretty much see it.
You see it. And I was like, holy crap. And so, again, this is another scene where they're showing you the archive footage and then they're showing you like the reenacted version of it. And you're like, oh my gosh. So I feel like that is kind of key. They don't just throw you in to the like high intensity situations. It starts out pretty, you know, nothing.
It's the attrition.
Yes. And then when they start doing the stuff where she's like putting people under hypnosis and then they're kind of freaking out, you're like, okay, like, and then when they show the dramatized version of it, it is more dramatized. It is a bit more intense than what the archival footage is. And that kind of is a theme throughout, which is what they said at the beginning.
Yeah,
this
they
is
let
going
you
to be
know.
more dramatic. The one thing I was going to say that I do want to point out is when they show the dash cam footage, which I know you're going to explain a little bit more when we get to like the end. But the scene when her daughter goes missing, there's a cop sitting outside of her house, and he's like, wakes up and sees this like beaming light, and he's like, oh my gosh, like he knows like there's like an alien ship or something, but you don't see anything else. So you're like, okay, well, this could be anything. Like if they showed the footage to the cop, he would be like, this is a light. Like there's
it could have been a helicopter that flew above that woke you up.
It's not until way after, like right before the text goes up, that you see the like flying saucer, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, did they actually just catch that on tape? Why would they not like show this to the cop? This can't be anything else. But again, yes, the text comes up and they're like, these people don't want to comment on it, or they're not, you know, no longer in touch with her. And then, like I said, I think the like mood significantly shifted again when they zoomed out from the interview with the doctor.
Yes.
And you realize she was like paralyzed pretty much.
Because they did establish there was one other person who got like had the alien talk through him at one point in the movie, and there was archival footage of that.
Yep.
And he was paralyzed after that encounter.
Correct.
Well, she had the same encounter because she was trying to find out where her daughter was.
Yeah.
But she got, and then you're like, oh, I guess we should have seen that coming. But when they zoom out, you're like, not only did she lose her daughter, not only is her son never talking to her, not only is her husband dead, not only is her credibility as a doctor gone. She's paralyzed.
Yeah.
And like this woman has just gone through so much.
And she just looks incredibly sickly and awful. Yep. So that was my only addition to that. I was like, I had not remembered the last time a movie did that to me.
Yeah,
Can I bring up the Sixth Sense thing right now?
Sure.
So I feel like people in our generation, we saw Sixth Sense at a young age.
Yeah.
And since then have been skeptics of every movie ever. Like, now everybody's like, oh, he's dead.
What's the twist ending? What's the gimmick? What's the weird thing going on here?
Like, they did a really good job of making you like be like, this is not one of those movies. Like this.
How many times
look at this footage?
How many times do you have the directors and actors come on screen and tell you ahead of time?
Yeah.
They're lulling you into a false sense of security because they're like, we're playing characters, but also we're going to show you real footage of what happened so that you understand it's not the quote unquote based on a true story.
Yes.
Where like, oh, it's all embellished.
Yep.
I'm gonna give everyone now the big gimmick. It's all fake.
I was gonna say
everything.
Yeah.
The archival footage was fake.
Everything
is fake. Even though they come on and they tell you at the beginning of the movie, this is all real. This archival footage actually happened.
Right.
It's all fake. Dr. Abigail Tyler is not actually a real doctor. She's an actress playing a real person.
I was low key like not sure if I wanted to be on this podcast, only because I'm like, nobody's gonna understand. Everybody's gonna be like, no, duh, like of course it's not real. But I'm like,
well, here's the second disclaimer.
Yeah,
we fell for it. we
clearly
got to the end and we were like, do you think this really happened?
We were 110% convinced.
For like 45 minutes afterwards, we discussed this movie, not thinking the simplest thing could be like look on IMDb and see whether or not actors played all the real people.
But let me tell you this. After this, like normal people, we got on our phones and we're like looking up stuff, right? I was so convinced that even though I looked up Dr. Abigail Tyler and Mia Jovovich or whatever her name is, and the other person,
her Charlotte Milchard, I think
she came up and her name wasn't Dr. Abigail Tyler, I thought Google messed up. Or like she changed her name because she was getting harassed or something. Like even in my mind did I think, wait a minute. That's probably a sign that she's like, I was that entrenched into the thought.
So to defend ourselves a little bit, because we
were drunk.
One, like you brought up, Sixth Sense has made us skeptical as movie viewers.
Yeah.
Blair Witch has made us skeptical. This is Blair Witch version 2. Because not only are they like implying this is real, they're literally telling you at the beginning of the movie that people are coming and looking you in the eye and saying, watch at your own risk.
Also,
because this is real.
There's a few things that I think really sold us.
Yeah.
To this beginning, it wasn't Mia Jovovich coming out and being like, whatever. It's because they said, we're dramatizing the scenes. It makes it seem like they're being transparent. Number two, I feel like
Great sales
the
pitch.
director sitting down with the quote unquote victim, I was like, okay, this is normal. Like, this is what directors do. They're going to go and talk to the subject.
Yeah.
And then I feel like number three is that when they were showing, like, the way they did it is they wouldn't just show you archival footage and then show you another scene. Like, they would do the side by side.
And it
so
was
I feel
done
like
perfectly.
your mind, I feel like, automatically is like, okay, real and fake. Like, this is the real footage. This one is the Hollywood version of it. And I think you even brought up, like, the person who plays Dr. Abigail Tyler, the quote-unquote real
actress,
one, and then the person, Mia Jovovich, she is a beautiful version of the one, which you would expect in a Hollywood movie, that she would not be very pretty in real life.
Everyone playing the real people all look just like normal people.
And lastly, the person who does play the one you feel bad for, the, like, real quote-unquote Abigail Tyler, is a nobody.
No, she's done like 3
you
or 4 other movies you've never heard of.
Anything.
Every single person.
She looks like a normal ass person.
Yeah, there was only one person, I believe, who played like a real person that actually had like a few acting credits, but like background work, like so
nothing.
Like it really is the Blair Witch thing. Now you may think like, okay. And we should have known this. One, because movies have trained us to know nothing is real.
We absolutely
2,
should have known.
we are wrestling fans. We should get kayfabe. Like, just because you're telling us something probably doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
But I would also defend to say that that's the reason why we bought into it. Because we were so ready in a mood to, like, watch something. And this is unique. I told you afterwards. I was
unique.
like, why haven't more movies done this?
Yes.
Not only in like a fake sense like this, but in a real sense. There's a lot of movies that are based on true stories and stuff like that. And it's like, well, why aren't they like taking the real footage? Because in this day and age, we have documentaries with all this live footage and stuff. Why aren't we doing our movies with this side by side to show you what's going on? Like, this was like a super cool concept of a movie to me, like how they directed it and how they portrayed it. Like, so why aren't they doing more like this? Granted, it flopped. Not a lot of people like this movie, but I thought it was ingenious.
I 100% never want to watch the movie again.
No, I don't
Only
need to.
because I know we're going to be like, this is so stupid.
Oh,
like,
yeah, when you know the gimmick, it's dumb.
I don't know, some kind of magic happened where we didn't, neither of us, not you or I.
We just didn't click that, like, could this be fake?
No, it did not
We legitimately were both, like, at the end, we were like, we need to look up if this is a hoax or not, because, like, I'm not going to be able to sleep after watching, like, this chick get possessed by an alien. Like,
okay, but
it's
this is
haunting.
the thing. This is the thing. I feel like we're going to lose people.
No.
When we were talking afterwards, you and I do not believe in, like, the flying saucer alien.
We don't believe in aliens as, like, movies
not
portray
like
them.
Martian Manhunter type thing. But we were more so thinking, I know a lot of people believe in, like, aliens, but you and I do believe in, like,
a spiritual realm, demonic possession, stuff like that.
Exactly. So if people who are, like, maybe non-religious would assign that to being an alien, maybe, but you and I would assign that to being
because we had a whole conversation where, like,
yes.
do you think that's aliens or do you think it's demons?
Yes. So we weren't thinking, like, oh, this is real because we think an alien came and abducted the daughter. We were thinking more like, okay, what the heck happened? Because clearly this girl, like, her husband had this issue and then the daughter's gone and then, like, you know, everybody around her is dying. Like, what the heck is happening?
And then we started talking about things like Cecil Hotel with that chick who seemed like possessed and then died. We started talking about the American Murder dude who seemed like a normal, nice guy, but then he ended up killing his wife and putting his 2 kids in an oil tank and killed them.
Yeah, that's like American Family Next Door or something like that on Netflix.
We were talking about those things.
Chris
We were like,
Watts.
this girl went through so much trauma. It doesn't seem that weird that she would have a break and, like, believe in her heart and her head that aliens abducted her child when she could have, like, killed her kid and hid her, and she doesn't remember.
We've seen way too many serial killer murder documentaries. I feel like that is part of the reason we fed into it, because we have seen, like, the perfect example you brought up, the Chris Watts story. They have the live footage of him with the, like, sheriff and all that stuff. Like, so it's not unbelievable now. I feel like that they would have had that.
I remember we were discussing this and we were like, this is so crazy. Like, we got to look things up. And I was like, I'm going to take the dog out.
Wait, tell them what you said before you took the dog out, though.
What did I say? I don't even remember what I said.
Okay, so
oh, did I say I feel like I did after Waco?
So Jordan, one of my favorite thing about him is he is just like one of the most compassionate people ever. And you're not generally a crier, but a few times you have cried. One was at the end of the movie Titanic. Not because you were like invested in Jack and Rose, but you were like crying and I was like, what's wrong? And you were like, this actually happened to people.
Yeah.
Like people were actually dying in this freezing cold water. Like that breaks my heart.
This crazy thing happened to them.
Yes.
Ugh.
So then the same thing happened at Waco when we watched the like reenactment documentary, and at the end all the kids are dying, and you were like crying, and you were
like leave the room.
You were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe
happened.
this actually happened to these kids. So just those are two real life events. So as Jordan's about to take the dog out, he's like, I feel anxious and sick, like we did like right after we watched Waco. That's how invested we were in the fact that we thought this was real.
What's funny is I thought like, okay, I'm gonna take the dog out, I'm gonna look up an article while she's like doing her thing, and I'm probably gonna find like someone being like, well, here's the reason why it's a hoax, because like the stuff seems tampered with or like unreliable, all that. First article is like, so all of this is fake. Like it was like the mayor of actual Nome, Alaska, and she's like, I'm sick of this movie because it's all fake. It's a movie, but people keep calling here and coming here thinking like, and they're like, and here was the biggest contention of it too. I think the reason why it kind of flopped a little bit and why maybe these type of movies don't work so well is like, if you say this is real and it's not, but it's based off, because it is based off an idea.
Correct.
There was in Nome, Alaska, which actually Nome, Alaska looks nothing like this movie.
Right.
It's a lot more.
But it is a real town.
It is a real town.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more arid. It's not as beautiful as it looks in this one. There was an occurrence where like 9 people or 14 people went missing and they thought it might be aliens.
Right.
And the FBI did come in to investigate and they found most of the bodies and they were all dead with high alcohol level volumes, dead from the elements of it being so cold.
Correct.
So it was ruled as like, this wasn't alien abductions.
But only half of the bodies were found.
9 of the 14 bodies were found. So a few weren't, but they also like...
But you were able to draw conclusions.
The majority of the bodies were found. They were all similar deaths. It's all like exposure was death. People either drunk, got lost, that type of thing. So they ruled at that, and I think the biggest point of contention is you're taking this idea that sounds like, okay, this fun conspiracy theory, but these people actually died. Like, their families actually had tragedy. Like, and you're now profiting off of this.
I mean, isn't that Hollywood?
Well, that's like the whole Logan Paul or Jake Paul or whoever Paul was in the Suicide Force, he got in trouble for, is because, like, people are like, these are real people's lives, and you're, like, trying to profit off the shock value of it. And so most Nome, Alaskan, Nomites or whatever they are, were not happy with this movie because...
Fair enough.
I get that. So it's a weird line you have to walk where, like, okay, if you're going to go down this path, you have to be very... careful that you're not going to be insensitive to things. Where I feel like this crossed over that line just enough.
Well, even... like at the end when they're like, okay, now you know the story, the text has gone up and you're like, okay, like it's not a happy ending, and then they're like, yeah, just so you like, you know, they come back on again, the director and Mia, and they're like, yeah, like in the past, like since the 60s, the FBI has like visited Nome, Alaska 3,000 times, and in the whole United States they've gone, or in the whole Alaska they've only gone to like Anchorage. I think they
Anchorage
said
was the second most visited,
and it had like 200. And so you're like, oh my gosh, there's something happening. And then I'm like, no, even that's not real.
That's
like,
all fake numbers.
Literally everything is fake.
Yep.
Like every single part of it.
Which we should have known as wrestling fans. Like, come on.
I mean, the thing is, though, I'm like, even with wrestling, I feel like there are elements of it that are true. Sometimes the guys really don't like each other.
It's true.
Sometimes they really do get hurt and they are bleeding and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes there really is drama behind the scenes. Most of the time, that is not the case, which is why I like wrestling over like UFC and stuff.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they're actually friends and they want the best for each other. But I'm like, so I feel like even then, like kayfabe isn't 100%. There's like elements that are real. Yeah. Which in this case, it's like, yeah, it was based off of some ideas which inspired them to write this story. But that's it. Mm-hmm. It's over. It's fake. It's nothing.
It's all fake. I mean, like if you can go into this movie, like we said at the beginning, and get sucked up into the
world,
fiction of it. It's a great movie, but you're right. It's very easy to start poking holes in it. And I love this one critic.
Afterwards, yes.
Yeah, I love this one critic. I read a review, and he was like, "It's a good movie, but it's a terrible movie at the same time." He goes, "I went in and I was like, I'm just gonna watch and take it at face value," and he did. He goes, "I very much enjoyed it." But he goes, the moment after I start talking to my friends and my girlfriend, we started poking holes and realizing it's all fake. It's all and like you really start losing respect for the movie after that. So it's
but see, that's where his mistake was. I wonder if the girlfriend was in the movie with him, because neither you or I were there for each other to take each other out.
Because when you start thinking about it logically, it really does fall apart.
It doesn't make any sense.
My biggest concern was like, the sheriff doesn't believe her, yet they have all this footage.
Yeah.
Why doesn't she just go, come here, look at this tape.
Right.
You tell me what you think is going on.
When you brought that up, I was like, look, she's had all this other stuff. He doesn't even really believe in hypnotism. So, like, he could explain away anything. Like, you know what I mean? But, yeah, that was just me being sucked up in the...
I also like how we had a full conversation about, like, aliens, too. And I'm always like, why is it all... And we were, like not arguing, but, like,
no, we always argue
debating about it. And I'm
like,
isn't it, like... just coincidental that aliens only ever go to the most rural towns, but like they don't decide to go to like Dallas? Like if they're so technologically advanced,
is that you would want to go to the rural town. Like you don't want everybody to know you exist.
You were like, they're planning. You don't want them to know you exist. I'm like, they've been planning since the 60s. I think they're ready.
No, they're not ready. They're still experimenting.
And then I said to you too, we had this conversation. I'm like, and this is a legitimate thing I was thinking about aliens. And I'm like, okay, I'm thinking of it from my perspective and not. Because like, I was like, okay, imagine we go to like, I said Jupiter, someplace we haven't had human contact with, right? And you land and there's sentient beings. I feel as humans, our first thought process wouldn't be, hey, we're going to kill y'all and experiment on you. I feel like if we went there, we'd be like, we need to figure out how to communicate with them. We need to see like what's going on. We need to be like friendly and stuff. Like we're coming on their turf and everything.
Right.
But then I started thinking, because I was like, so why do we assume all aliens coming here just all they want to do is experiment and kill us? Like, wouldn't they also want to be like, hey, sentient beings, what's going on? But then I thought in my head, I'm like, but what if we go to like Mars and we find like a plant, something we don't consider sentient,
right?
And we pull it out of the ground and we do experiments on it and we poke and prod because we think this is just a non-sentient thing,
right?
A living but not really living thing. It doesn't have emotions and all that. I'm like, what if the aliens are so advanced they look at us and we resemble something that's non-sentient to their eyes from their planet, and they're like, oh yeah, these things are just like pebbles we're picking up and poking around at.
There's no harm.
Yeah, so like I was like, there's no way. It's apples and oranges, I guess.
Could be.
I always try to justify these things in my head because I'm like, I'd like to believe that us as a race would not be so like evil, but also that other races wouldn't be so evil. But I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows?
You know. Also, we brought up a point too where like, we were like, who lives in a town like this? They literally said the only way to get to this town, I don't know if it's true for actual Nome, Alaska, but in the movie it was like flying in is the only way. Like there's no roads that get you in and out of the town or anything. And we're like, who would want to live here? Probably either crazy people or people who are trying to hide from someone. So obviously these people are the ones who are like, alien abduction, but yeah, you're crazy.
I don't know. I was telling Jordan at the beginning because he's like, well, like, why would all of these people like have the same problem where they're seeing the owl and stuff? I'm like, there are some conclusions you can draw. They all live in this town.
Yeah.
They all were seeing a psychologist, which I'm not, there's no stigma in that in my mind. I'm saying that could mean that they're really dedicated to self-help or they were having trouble, in this case, sleeping. They all have the same thing. So I'm like, you know what I mean? And I was saying that too. I'm like, all the people in Nome, if this really is a town where you have to take like a 60-minute plane ride to get there, you are probably like
a certain kind of person.
Yeah. So that's, I feel like, all I could say without being like offensive, because I don't want to be like, I'm not saying it like they're bad people or they're trying to run away or something, but I'm saying there's probably a lot that those people in that town have in common.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's true. Yeah, because that is a big common factor.
Yeah, just like people who live in downtown areas and prefer to live there versus people who prefer to live in the country. Like,
yeah,
they're very different kinds of people. Like, but they all kind of congregate together and they're going to probably have...
birds of a feather flock together.
Yes, pretty much. That's a very simple way of saying it.
I also then started bringing up the point, though, too. I'm like, okay, Flint, Michigan had, like, this water issue. Chernobyl had, like, a breakdown of the why can I not think of what that... Not chemicals.
I don't know what you're referencing.
What is Chernobyl? They had the nuclear stuff and everything. So I started thinking, I'm like, well, what if, like... Because, again... at the point I'm still believing everything they're telling me. I'm like, well, what if the reason the FBI has gone there like over 2,000 times is because like back in the 60s during the Cold War, like they were doing experiments like MK Ultra, like this is the town, they were off the grid doing experiments, Manhattan Projects type stuff, like, and they keep coming back because they keep trying to like keep it under wraps. But like these people, it's not aliens, but they're all like possessed with something that they were trying to do and everything.
Yes.
Like that's where my mind started going and stuff.
I feel like part of the reason you and I are always have that mindset, which sounds like we're conspiracy theorists, but we're not, is that because we love movies like The Imitation Game.
Yeah.
That was a government secret that they were sworn to secrecy for years, and now is a Hollywood movie.
Yeah. And it was legit.
Okay.
They let
What's
people
the other
die.
one that like Ben Affleck was in? That starts with an R.
Benjamin
Argo. No, Argo. Like they have all of these movies that were once top government secrets that nobody could know about that are now Hollywood movies. What are we going to find out in 30 years? It's a Hollywood movie, but nobody could say anything at the time.
Well, again,
I'm being a little facetious, but I'm also being a little truthful.
But the Navy, like, showing the UFO stuff.
Yeah.
And a little bit more down to earth, whatever you believe about the UFO stuff. But, like, the Navy saying, like, I think it was, like, 3 years ago, they were like, they announced, we've had for decades this laser on our tanks that can shoot down, like, warheads. Which, one, I'm like, conspiracy nut again. I'm like, I don't know if I believe that, because this sounds like you're just trying to, like, one, put some information out there that might try to stop certain people from doing things.
Sure.
Because you're like, oh, we have a home security system, so don't try to rob us, when you really don't have one. Or like just putting the ADT sign out front.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like, I feel like it's that kind of like posturing or whatever. But yeah, it's like you find these things out decades later where you're like, wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
And that actually
they did
happened.
That. Right. Correct.
So I will say one positive thing about this movie is that it doesn't rely on a lot of jump scares to be scary. It relies
Thank goodness.
Yeah, it's atmosphere. So if you're willing to
and no scary monsters.
No, they don't really show you anything.
They don't show anything.
I would argue that end archival footage of her being possessed is pretty scary, monsterish looking.
Yeah.
But it's also really like hard to see
really
what's going on. It's really distorted and stuff. I'm a really appreciative of a scary movie that's all atmosphere and that's it. They found a way to be scary without having to like show you a monster, have a jump scare. Like you're just
but that's what I like about more of like the psychological thrillers. I'm like, you almost are like, why do I feel so scared?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I like that.
Yeah.
I actually do have a lot of positive things to say about this movie, but only because I feel like I said, circling back to the whole like Sixth Sense thing, like I never thought I would feel that again.
No.
Like that feeling of like legitimately being duped, and then you're like, oh my gosh. There was one other one, The Others by Nicole Kidman. That one got us.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, but that wasn't like, you just know that's fake. It's a fake story. It was like on a book or something.
Yeah.
Where this one, it was like we were wholeheartedly invested in this
and
story.
we are going to be unapologetic for falling for this.
Yes.
Because we got to feel genuine emotion again in a movie. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to feel genuine emotion in a movie these days.
Yeah, it's true.
And we felt it.
I know.
I'm
like,
happy we
there
got
was a little
duped.
bit of magic.
Yeah. I'm happy for like the 45 minutes afterwards that we got duped. I'm very
Even
happy.
though it wasn't a pleasant emotion.
No,
but it duped us.
But when I found out it was fake and I like came up here after taking Bailey out and I was just like, Madison, this is the best thing ever. We both got fooled. Like, how amazing is this? Like, I was
so happy
amped that like a movie pulled one over on me, because I never get scared in scary movies anymore. I never believe anything anymore. I'm such a skeptic about everything. I'm like, it felt good to be a believer for like a few hours.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, so that was cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about who's in this movie and all that.
Okay.
Came out November 6, 2009. It had a $10 million budget.
Oh, wow.
It grossed $25 million in the States, $47 million worldwide.
That's good.
Still not great. I feel like, it
It's
probably
double.
made its money back in the USA, made a little bit of money worldwide. It has an 18% critic score, so not too happy with the critics.
That is not good.
And a 41% audience.
That's still not great.
Better, but not great.
Yeah.
So the aerial shots of Nome is Squamish, British Columbia, and Canada.
Okay.
But all the shots where they're actually like not in the air, which is 99% of the movie, was filmed in Bulgaria.
How odd.
Kind of random, right?
Yeah, random.
So the director and writer of this movie, his name is, I'm going to butcher this so bad, Olatunde Asunsanmi. Mm-hmm. He's the guy who's conducting the interview, the Chapman University guy. His real name is up there, but like, that's all fake.
Right.
He wrote and directed this movie and everything. He also has directed some Star Trek Discovery episodes. He's directed some episodes of Bates Motel, an episode of Gotham. He did Falling Skies, which there's another actor in this movie who's also in that, so it makes sense. There's kind of some crossover there. And he directed the movie The Cavern. So the only two movies he's done is The Cavern and The Fourth Kind. Everything else he's directed has been TV shows.
Okay.
But all sci-fi, alien-type TV shows.
Makes sense. He did it well.
This is his thing, you know? We have Mila Jovovich or Mia Jovovich. I can't remember what her name is.
I don't remember.
She played the reenactment of Dr. Tyler, Resident Evil, The Fifth Element. I mean, like, I think she was in Eon Flux or Ultraviolet or one of those movies or something. Like, everyone knows who she is.
Yeah.
Will Patton played Sheriff August. He was a main character in Falling Skies. That's essentially what I knew him from. But you brought up, too, that I had forgotten, Remember the Titans.
Yeah,
he's the coach in that. He was also in Gone in 60 Seconds as well as Armageddon. So he's a face you will recognize when you see this movie. Corey Johnson plays Tommy. The reason I wanted to bring him up, he has like 100 and some acting credits, but he's going to be in the new Morbius movie with Jared Leto, the Marvel film from Sony about the living vampire. So I'm like, oh, cool. He's like in a new movie coming out. So that's kind of fun. We have Elias Cotis played Abel. Her friend, the psychology friend. He's in a million things. He's in so much stuff. You'll recognize his face. But I wanted to bring up the one thing that I know him from, which was a long time ago. Looks way different because it's like 30, maybe even 40 years ago. He plays Casey Jones in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies from the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of...
Yeah, I've seen him in so much stuff.
Yeah, you see him in like a million things. He's what I call the 99-cent store Robert De Niro because he has kind of the squishy face when he talks, but like not all the way. So,
I could see that.
Yeah. We have Mila McKenna Bruce plays Ashley Tyler, the little girl. She's been in a few things recently, but she was in an episode of The Witcher, first season of The Witcher.
She did. I mean, I always hate to rag on like kid actors, but she did not do it.
She's awful, but she's got some work afterwards. Yeah. She's supposed to play a blind child. I mean, that's hard to do.
This is the problem. Like, for example, there was a part where the mom was like, "Here, like, come here." And she's supposed to be blind. But so she follows her voice, but she knew when to lift her leg.
To get on the bed, yeah. Yeah.
And this was like, you know what I mean? I'm just like little stuff. I'm like, I can see. She had no problem going up and down the steps.
Even
like
2009, kid actors still weren't what they are today.
Yeah,
we're getting better now.
Yeah.
And then finally, like we said, the real Abigail Tyler was
I think from the first time watching it, I loved her.
Yeah, she was played by Charlotte Milchard from London, England.
She
looked wrecked. Like
that's part of the reason I believed it.
Yeah, they did a good job with the makeup because she looks like a normal person.
Yeah,
she looks wrecked in this movie, and they did a great job with that makeup.
Yeah.
All right, so I got some fun facts here for you.
Yes.
What is facts? Baby, they're fun. They're fun. Oh yeah. What is facts? Baby, they're fun. They're fun. Oh yeah.
Make this movie fun.
Yes. So The Fourth Kind is a reference to scientist J. Allen Hynek's famous categories involving the sightings of UFOs. Also, Close Encounters of the Third Kind from 1977. Uses that scale as well. Okay. Also, we saw Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is like a knockoff movie on Hulu. I was like, I kind of want to watch that now and see what this is. What's the Fifth Kind?
No, the next movie we're watching is The Killer Sofa.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, The Killer Sofa looks so good, so amazing. Yeah, that would be a great one to watch. Or Willy's
that's
Wonderland.
Sarcasm. Just
you
so
legitimately want to watch Willy's Wonderland?
No, I know the Sofa Killer though. I don't.
You don't want to watch that, but you want to watch Nicolas Cage kill some Chuck E. Cheese animatronics.
Absolutely.
The real Dr. Abigail Tyler was played by actress Charlotte Milchard. In the end credits, she appears credited as Dr. Abigail Tyler in the final cast list, and her real name is credited as Nome Resident. So they got away with the crediting by crediting her as a Nome Resident, but then also saying Dr. Abigail Tyler played by Dr. Abigail Tyler. They really were trying.
Wow.
Like, they were trying really hard to make sure that everyone thought this was real, even though like that's almost impossible to do. But like they were really trying hard on this one. Speaking of end credits, it doesn't include the events and persons depicted in this film are fictitious, and any resemblance is purely coincidental, or the film is based on the real event section. Like those sections they always put at the end of every credit, they just omitted them. Because they wanted you to think that
they really wanted
this
you
is
to
all
think it.
real.
Wow.
Like we're not even putting a disclaimer saying like anything that might seem real isn't real.
Right.
So
well, technically that's
cool.
what they did at the beginning. They just diverted you.
So the real Nome, Alaska is 51% native Alaskans. but there are no indigenous characters in this film. I think I was supposed to write down Native Americans. I'm pretty sure it's mostly Native Americans who live in Nome, Alaska. But no Native Americans were actually portrayed in this film. Like, it was all whitewashed, of course. Even the archival footage. So, like, I think that was another thing they were kind of bummed about. They were like, well, you're going to put Nome in a movie and you're not even going to, like, portray its actual ethnicity, but okay.
Yeah, I was going to say everybody was pretty much 99% white, except
Welcome to Hollywood.
The speech specialist.
The speech specialist.
The guy who came in and knew, like, about the ancient Samaria. He was,
he seemed like he was some type of, like, African descent.
Yeah.
Like, they had, I forgot to write his name down. He's actually a pretty big actor.
Yeah,
as
he
well.
looked very
familiar. He was in a lot of, like, prominent Oscar movies and stuff like that. Like, he's a very good actor. I forget his name. But I don't know if his accent is real or not. I want to say it is, because almost every movie he plays, he has the accent.
Right.
So I want to say, like, that's actually him. He might be, like, first generation or like moved to America young or something like that. Over the closing credits, there are a series of radio interviews with eyewitnesses to close encounters of the first to fourth kind. You can listen to those. I honestly don't know if those are real or not. I think possibly those are real, like people saying they've seen alien stuff, which is, mostly like truck drivers and whatnot and everything. I've had an experience with a weird UFO before,
yes,
too.
You have.
I've told the story before.
Yeah.
Out in the desert on my way to Phoenix, Arizona. I saw something weird. There you go. Bailey. Gosh, our dog is weird. All right, final fun fact here. The fourth kind received mainly negative reviews from critics, many of whom were offended that the film attempted to use the real-life tragedies of missing and deceased Nome citizens in order to make money using a fictitious story about alien abductions.
I mean, is that the only movie ever to have done this?
No,
I'm
but
surprised.
Any movie that does something like this and tries to embellish, they normally gets negative reactions to.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's all it is. That's the movie.
Yeah, that was good.
It's we objectively,
it'll forever be one of my favorites in my mind just because you and I experienced that together.
Objectively, it's not a great movie, but
now that it ruined it.
We allowed ourselves to be in the proper mindset to enjoy the movie and let Hollywood magic just take over.
Absolutely.
I'm going to have enjoyed this 1,000,000 times more than Space Jam 2, which we're going to be covering at some point.
Well, there you go.
So I'm happy. I was happy. Did it wreck your reality? I feel like it wrecked our reality.
Post.
Yeah, I think it wrecked our reality for quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, that was I just feel like I wish everybody could watch it and experience the feeling of feeling like it was real.
Yeah.
Because it was like so intense. But I'm like, now I feel like even the movie is wrecked because I don't ever want to watch it again.
No, because that was boring.
Or I'm going to be like, really, Madison and Jordan? You fell for this?
I know.
Like, you thought this was really good? Like, we were like 110%. There wasn't even an ounce of disbelief for the 2 hours it took us to watch it and discuss it afterwards.
I believed all the archival footage was hoax. I didn't at one thought think, like, is it legitimately fake, though? Like,
no.
They made this. And you were like, well, they had timestamps on it. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if that's the reason why I believe it. I believed it more because they came on the freaking screen and said,
yeah,
this is real. Like, we both... I'm so happy that we allowed ourselves to feel that.
Yes, me too.
So happy.
But guess what? That's going to be the last time in our life. Because now, like I was telling Jordan, I'm like, they're going to show us a documentary of like a new Netflix documentary. And we'll be like, yeah, this is fake.
It's fake. Like, we're going to watch the 13th now and be like, this...
Or
no one's discriminating against black
people. This isn't... None of this is real. Like, I just feel like every documentary now, like anything, even that's like... I'm just going to be like, I don't believe anything at all.
I said that as a joke, too. I do believe systematic racism is a real thing.
Of course.
Just in case someone doesn't catch the sarcasm in my voice.
Yes. I just meant, like, I can't believe, like I said 1,000 times, I really never thought after watching The Sixth Sense that I was ever going to be, like, that entrenched and duped and stuff, and it totally worked.
I, like, have the bug in my head now to, like, want to produce a movie that legitimately has archival footage next to reenactment that is real archival footage. I don't know why no one's done that.
Maybe they haven't. We just don't know about it.
Yeah, more like indie film, because the way it was done was the most unnerving thing ever, having it side by side and playing in between each. Oh man, I think that's a novel way of doing a movie.
I think they did an amazing job.
So go check out wreckmypodcast.com,
yes,
where you can find our Redbubble store, you can find our Instagram, you can find our YouTube channel there, you can find all that fun stuff. Go become a Patreon member. You get starting soon, you get one episode a month that's exclusively just for you. If you're not a Patreon member, there's going to be a week, and every month you're not getting the episode. So sorry about that.
You're gonna miss out.
Go pay $1 a month. That's all it is. $1 a month to hear like the extra episode and everything.
It'll be worth it.
It'll be worth it. We also have other fun stuff over there as well. Go give us a rating or a review. That really helps us out if you don't want to spend any money. If you give us a review and you take a picture and send it to the Instagram, I will send you a sticker. There you go.
Honestly, how long does it take to write a review?
Oh, like 2 seconds.
Literally, I'm going to tell you what to write. Put 5 stars and be like, wow, I love every time Madison is on this podcast.
Yeah.
That's literally all you
That's all
have
you need to write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you'll get a free sticker.
Yeah. So come back soon. Maybe we did the Space Jam 2 episode already. Maybe it's coming up soon. I don't know when I'm releasing this one. This one we watched, not thinking I was going to do a podcast episode on.
But
and
then we had to.
Both just the experience we had. We were like, we have to talk about this. That we are like such
we're like way too
gullible
passionate
dummies
about it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
All
too
right.
much.
Well-
Also, I want people. Sorry, I'm like hijacking it. I want people to write in. Maybe on your review or like to your Instagram and tell me the last time you had a movie do this to you. Because then I want to watch that movie.
Yes, I agree.
Like, let me know if there's any movies, A, that do the documentary style with like alongside the reenactment, or B, a movie like generally got you like so emotionally scared or like something. Like, I want to know.
Yeah, I want to know because I want some emotionally invested movies.
Yes.
I don't want to be sitting there and being like, meh.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
I get emotionally invested. Like I get excited. Like Star Wars excites me. Marvel excites me.
No,
But,
I'm
like,
talking about this kind of.
I don't get emotionally invested. Like, yeah, when spoiler alert for Marvel, when Tony Stark dies, I was like, yeah, that's sad. But I'm also like, he's a character that doesn't exist and I'm whatever about it. Like, this got me.
Yeah.
This got me.
Yeah. So write in.
Yeah, write in.
I think so.
I think so too. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Wreck My Podcast. Wreck My Podcast.